Welcome to the clinical cookout. You know you need it, it's kinda scary, but mental health is necessary. Four educated queens taking the lead, hold their hands and they'll help you succeed. Lay your head back, relax, just like that. Now listen to, learn, and your problems will burn away. Cookout, you know, we got just what you need. At the cookout, your heart and mind we will be. At the cookout.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. We are qualified clinicians who will cover various topics on mental health and will sometimes provide community resources. We are not being paid by any organization for our content, and any information we provide is general and pertains to our own personal experiences. We do not provide psychotherapy, diagnoses, or treatment recommendations on air. Any concerns related to your individual mental health should be directed to your medical and mental health professionals. We are not responsible for others' decisions or the subsequent consequences.
Welcome to our hot sauce today, y'all. And this week we're talking about breastfeeding. But to start off, for our hot sauce, we typically talk about trends or something that may be happening currently or some current event. So we wanted to look at how breastfeeding becomes this big deal in society. So a lot of women, and we've all heard the stories about how women have been, pretty much embarrassed in public because someone doesn't like the fact that they're breastfeeding in public, or someone, gives them a dirty look or just snarls at them or something of that nature. So I'm wondering, for a hot sauce topic, how would you handle someone who disagrees with you breastfeeding in public?
So when I was nursing, I didn't handle people like that. I just totally ignored them. I'm gonna feed my baby when my baby is hungry. I don't have, at that time, I didn't have the energy or the effort to put into cussing folks out because I was already exhausted. But now if I were to see somebody do that to a woman, I'm definitely saying something. You're going to leave these nursing mothers alone. It's natural. The baby's hungry and that's it. And you should be able to feed your baby anyway and not have to be covered.
I've gotten comments from family members and I don't know, sometimes I just look at people because some people are really just ignorant and really don't really understand what's happening or what's going on, or they didn't think about it any deeper than, ew, that's nasty. So one time I was at home and a lot of different people was like, oh, that's so nasty. That's how you feed your baby. And so I had put on a wrap. And my grandmother said, get that off that baby head. And I was like, huh? And she was like, did you eat with a blanket over your head? It's too hot for that. And when she said that, she set me free. But she had 10 kids and she was a G. So she's like, ain't nobody about to be doing all that. It's too hot. And it was too hot. It was 89 degrees. So it's like, why would I pay any of that any attention? And so when she said that, she kind of set me free. And after that, nobody could really tell me nothing. I would just come back with that. They'd be like, oh, use a cover up. I'm like, you don't eat with a blanket over your head. Or they'll be like, that's how you feed your baby. I'm like, it's natural. That's what they're for. They're not fun bags. That's why I have milk. And I squirt people.
You squirt people?
I have squirted multiple folks.
That's assault with the bodily fluid. I just want you to be aware that is assault.
Is that a thing?
That would be considered assault with the bodily fluid. I just want her to be aware.
They assaulted me with their words. And they were family, so they would never tell me. But
There's no way you think I'm crazy. There's no way that I'm the crazy one. No way.
Because you just said that you used to squirt people with her titties. You just squirt people.
It's my husband. I always played around like that. I'll squirt somebody in a minute, or my sisters. But no, yeah, that's what it was. When she set me free, I was free.
I think for me, it was I was always in my head about it, with my first kid. Because it was weird for me too. Before you have kids, you hear everything else that everybody else says about breastfeeding. So with my first kid, it was always so weird for me to breastfeed in public. And we traveled a lot. So I was always in the airport. At the time, they didn't really have now they have the rooms you can go in. Mm-hmm. But I was always thinking, somebody's looking at me. Somebody's going to think I'm nasty. Somebody's going to think I'm, flashing them or whatever. So I don't even know if people actually made comments or gave me the looks or not because I was so much in my own head. But then by my second kid, I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to do it. and I wish somebody would say something to me. Because, like, what else are you supposed to do?
Right. You know what's interesting, Amber, that you say you were in your own head about it? I think that how we were raised can play a part in that too. Like, not saying if you were raised seeing babies breastfed or not, but more so modesty. Because, like, my husband, he would tell me cover up. He grew up in a very modest family where it's like you don't. My family, listen, my aunt would go to the mailbox naked. She didn't care. So we never had a problem with nudity anyway. So it was nothing for me. It was like, okay, now I'm feeding the baby. Now it's a reason to have my titty out.
Yeah, you know what? My husband was very modest too, and he would be like, can you cover up like when people will come over? So after a while, like when I had the baby, there was a time where he was like, hey, A, B, C, and these people want to come over, and I was like, no, because I want to feed. The baby's getting used to it, and I'm not covering up. So if they're coming over, they're gonna see this, or they're not coming. And then I think he kind of relaxed a little bit more too, because you're already facing postpartum depression. You already, just had the baby. You're bleeding all over the place. Everything is just out of place. You don't feel like yourself. Mm-hmm. And then the baby doesn't latch on as easy sometimes. You're still trying to work through that at home. And that's with each individual baby. Each one of my 5 kids, where I still had to teach them how to feed. And to have other people in your space, and then you got to like not be yourself. It was a no.
Oh, yeah. In my own house, you better not come if you don't want to see it.
Well, obviously, I'm the auntie with no children. But can I give a round of applause for growth, though? Because before, when I saw women breastfeeding in public, I would be like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, this is so inappropriate. And I would be like, I would just be looking at them like I was the person who was looking like, why would they do this? Me now, as a clinician, and as someone who works with women who have postpartum, I'm a uppercut you the moment you say something about a woman breastfeeding in public. I'm an uppercut you. That's just it. Because the amount of I didn't realize. See, that's why education and being around individuals and learning things is important, because it changed my perspective, especially after my sister, had a baby. So I was able to understand that, no, this is not right how you think about this. But if somebody ever approached a woman saying that she should cover up, you definitely get cussed out. Like, I don't even know if I can even hold myself together, because it's just so inappropriate to disrespect somebody because they're trying to feed the human that came out of them. Like, I can't believe I was even there 10, 15 years ago. I can't believe I thought that way. But round of applause for growth. Yeah. Hopefully I won't be in jail for defending people. But I don't take that. And I do think that it takes people like myself who don't have children, or just people in general, to stand up for other mothers. For me, like, it takes a village. It takes all of us to stand up if we want things to change. Mm-hmm. So
it not only takes women, or those who identify as women who don't have children. I think it really takes men to stand up in this too, because like fathers, uncles, cousins, men in general, if they can start to see it differently and teach other men to see it differently, I think that will have an effect, because your thought process about it before was normal. If you want to be honest, society-wise, it was normal. Breastfeeding has changed so much along the lines of society over time. How you originally thought about it is how a lot of people think about it. But of course, you learn, you grow, you gain self-awareness, and things change, and you learn how to change your mind on things. But more importantly, that can take us right into our main dish, because we're talking about breastfeeding and mental health, and we can also touch on the societal aspects of that.
At the cookout, your heart and mind we will be. At the cookout, your peace is what we desire.
All right, y'all, let's get into this main dish. So I was chosen to give the introduction because I have the most kids and have breastfed the most kids. So let me go ahead and start off with a story. once upon a time, I was in the UK and I was sitting on a bench and I stopped to breastfeed my baby. I want to say it was Elias. It might have, no, it was Elias. Elias is 7, he's 6 now. So as I was breastfeeding, a mother came up to me, and I don't have the card anymore because I must have gave it out, but she dropped a little card, like just a little business card, and it said, good job, mama. And because mama, M-U-M, that's British. And that's like the British way to say mom. So when she said good job, mom, I was like, what is this for? She was like, well, somebody gave it to me because I was breastfeeding in public and without shame. So I'm giving it to you because you were breastfeeding in public. She was like, so your only job is to pass this card forward when you see somebody breastfeeding in public. Well, we've since moved to America and I have not seen anybody breastfeeding in public. I think one person I've seen, and I finally gave away the card and I had to tell her the significance of the card. Um, but I just thought that that was unique because I know other countries are very much more into mother and baby. They don't necessarily have a problem with the breastfeeding in public, but in America, there is a big problem. As y'all can see in the hot sauce, I talked about how even my family members had a problem with me breastfeeding in public. So, we're going to talk about how it affects mental health and a bunch of other aspects of that as well. I just wanted to share my story first. Go ahead, Aunties.
Well, I ain't never had nobody tell me good job for breastfeeding in public.
No, that was the
That's
sweetest thing
awesome.
ever.
It was very nice.
Oh, well, we already know America, the American, and it's not as accepted over here for various reasons, societal, all that. But how about we tell the people the benefits of it, though? Like with that story, you were breastfeeding in public. Women over in England breastfeed, seemingly breastfeed more. Let's talk about the benefits of breastfeeding. Like, what are the actual benefits and why is breast best? Even though a fed baby is best, as long as the baby's fed, there's a specific reason why breast milk is best.
And I was just gonna share some established benefits through research. So like we know research may be different than our own personal experiences, but there are a lot of benefits for the mother and for the child as well. So I recently looked into this research study. It's like a literature review, so it combines several different studies from like the past 10 to 15 years all into one, and it kind of listed some of the benefits. So some of that is like lower rates of obesity for the mom, so it reduces the risk of medical problems for the mother in the future. Also, reducing symptoms of anxiety and depression because of some of the hormones that are released whenever you do breastfeed. And then also making the mom feel more what's the word, like more confident in their abilities as a mother as well. There's just some kind of connection between breastfeeding your child that makes you feel more like I know what I'm doing, like I got this. And then also increased sleep. So nighttime, let me say at night, because throughout the day it ain't gonna be the same. But at nighttime, mothers who breastfeed have been found to get just a little bit more sleep than mothers who don't. And then for the infant, it seems like those infants are less irritable. This is research that don't mean every single breastfed baby is going to be less irritable, but also the attachment between the child and the mother. So I did just want to like list those are some of the more established benefits through research, but I'm sure we know some other benefits, just life, personal relationships with other people.
Well, there are some benefits that I did learn being a breastfeeding mother in England. So, first of all, two of my kids were born in England. My first child was a preemie. And even with her being born in England as a preemie, they still pushed breastfeeding because of they needed her to gain weight fast. They wanted her to be more healthy, especially since she was so early. She was going to get all the benefits that I had in my body. Um, and then even with my second child that was born in England, she had eczema. So the first thing that they said was squirt your breast milk on it. And her skin cleared up. Any skin problems, cradle cap, everything. I've squirted breast milk on the problem and it's cleared things up. Baby acne, you can use breast milk and it clears things up. Your grandmother said get a little pee and wipe it on the face. Okay, or you can just use your breast milk. So I've had a lot of good experiences with it. Just living somewhere else where everybody doesn't view it as nasty.
Mhm. I remember when I had my oldest daughter, the lactation consultant came in, and sadly, a lot of hospitals don't always have a lactation consultant. I think that it would be really beneficial for them to have that, to have nursing classes, just like they have Lamaze classes. Anyway, the lactation consultant came in, and she was basically telling me, she asked, "Are you breastfeeding or bottle feeding?" I said, "Breastfeeding." And she said, "Okay, let's go over some things." And then she was actually surprised that I said breastfeeding so quick. And she explained to me why. She said, not a lot of mothers in general, but especially not a lot of Black mothers choose to breastfeed. And this was in 2008. So then she went on to explain it to me. And she said, at the end of the day, breast milk is like liquid gold. And you'll hear people say that. She's like, it's liquid gold. She said, yes, feeding the baby formula is perfectly fine because a fed baby is best. She said, but there are things that formula cannot replicate that is in breast milk. And she went on to talk about it. And she was just like, there are certain things, even if you only breastfeed for a week, that first milk is full of stuff that the baby needs that they cannot get elsewhere. She said, and breastfed babies typically get sicker less. And she just gave me all these benefits. And I was like, I just want to breastfeed because I didn't want to buy formula. That was it.
Yeah, and actually, for my personal experience, so with my first child, this was a whole debacle with the hospital because they didn't teach me how to breastfeed properly, and then they tried to tell me she needed to have formula first and all this kind of stuff. And I had already did my own research, which education is very important for this. So I was like, no, I'm going to breastfeed her. I'm going to figure it out. So like, I did call like an outside lactation person to come in and help me out with that. But even with that, I did notice with her, I breastfed with her for, I think, a couple of months. And then for a while, like, I was really sick, and then I had to go away for something for a while. And she was on formula for a little bit, and she started getting sick. She actually, she had colic for a little while. She had, the cough, croup. She actually got croup for a little bit and had to go to the hospital. I really didn't make the connection at the time. I thought maybe just because I was away, whatever it was. But once we got back to breastfeeding, like, my kids rarely ever get sick. And I feel like that probably has something to do with that. Because even my second kid, like, he rarely ever got sick. So I think that helps with your kid's immune system as well when they're breastfed.
Mercy was the only kid in my house that never got COVID because I was breastfeeding when I actually got the vaccine. Everybody in this house got COVID, and I was breastfeeding her with COVID. She never caught it, but she got the antibodies that I got that came through the shop.
You know what? That just reminded me, Shug. Zuri, when I was nursing her, every time I would eat, now this is a con for a lot of mothers. What you eat will affect the baby. So every time I would eat, not every time I eat, when I would eat seafood, she would break out. Every time I had seafood, and I love seafood, anytime I had shrimp, crab, whatever, she would break out. The doctor literally told me, keep nursing her. When you eat seafood, don't not do it, because she can gain a resistance to it and not have an allergy. You can stop her from having an allergy, because otherwise she may have one, because my dad is allergic to seafood. So I just kept nursing her. She would break out. That girl eats seafood anytime now. She loves seafood. So she didn't get the allergy.
Well, it's really amazing that, first off, like you were saying, when you were at the hospital, the lactation consultant was telling you, like, not a lot of mothers, but Black mothers in particular, do not choose to breastfeed. And right now you have 3 Black mothers on one podcast that chose to breastfeed exclusively for their children. So it's amazing to see that. And this is wonderful. But I also want to talk about the other end of it too, is the mothers that choose not to breastfeed. And, it's not negative. It's not necessarily a bad thing if you choose not to breastfeed, because there are so many other factors that influence that decision. And I just wanted to know, like, from y'all's experience, what are some things that you've seen that kind of feed into that choice of not breastfeeding?
Well, I'm on that end of the spectrum because I don't have children of my own, but I have personal experience and clinical experience working with moms who maybe have started off breastfeeding, but then they had to discontinue, as well as watching my sister try to breastfeed, but my nephew could not or did not latch on. So there were some troubles in that, and there was also troubles in producing milk. or at least enough of it. So sometimes women just can't produce enough. So that prevents them or causes a barrier for them to breastfeed like other women, or maybe their desire to do so that prevents them from doing so. And I, working with women, or in my clinical experience, I have had women who started doing that, but not realizing all the things that went into place with breastfeeding. Like there was so much like equipment they had to carry, or they had to find places that were, available to them, or they didn't want the embarrassment or the shame of doing that in public, and that started to weigh heavy on their mental health. So they had to make a decision of either I'm going down, me and this baby going down, or I got to do what I need to do right now to keep us both afloat. So I've seen it that way. And also, this is something that I found out that was new. And I think I found this out during COVID too, but this was brought up again in my clinical work, that there is a whole breastfeeding community. So even if you can't produce milk, moms around the world, around the country, can produce milk and give it to other women. And I thought that was gold. Like, people cannot convince me that women are not the best thing on earth, because I had never heard of that before. But apparently, as much as you can, like, just like you can go on Facebook and find a group for anything, there's a breastfeeding Facebook group for women who need breast milk. And it's free. So, now, some people charge, other people, it's typically free. And I've had that experience with some of my moms who did donate. And I thought it was really, really cool. And another thing, sometimes women can't breastfeed for, because their child may have a medical condition that prevents them from doing so. So, they may need surgery, dealing with their tongue and lip, or there may be another medical procedure that needs to be done, or a condition that prevents that. So that's my take from the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, and I wanted to comment on the milk banks, because they actually have some that, like, at the hospital for like the NICU babies, they do that. I did donate some at the time. And I will say, I don't know if other mothers think this, so I'm just gonna say it, because at first when I heard about it, I was like, no, I'm not giving my baby somebody else's milk. That's nasty. That's weird. But I actually learned that they do screen and process the milk in a different way, and so it's not like just a random person. Yeah, I mean, it is a random person, but it's not just somebody, on the street just kind of putting their titty in your kid's mouth. But they have procedures that they go through to make sure that the milk is healthy for your child. So just anybody that had a thought process like I do, I just want to let y'all know it is safe, and they make it safe in that way.
I did. I had always had that thought process until I started thinking about, well, black women were wet nurses. So,
Oh yeah.
really, a lot of white babies had a lot of chocolate milk. That's just how come chocolate milk?
Mutual.
I have to take. That's the damn take.
I mean, I made chocolate milk, but I mean, it's history. So I had to start thinking about it like that. Like, we've raised other people's kids on our breast milk, and it wasn't nasty back then. So what makes it nasty now? For me, I'm always thinking of, oh God, what did you eat? And what if you're smoking? And what if you're drinking? I'm always thinking of all the other things, but I know that there is a big screening process for that. So even though I'm pro breastfeeding, I was not pro that for myself. But I did have a friend who had some little Twinkies, little twin babies, and she got some for them because it was just better for them. And then I even gave her some of my breast milk for them.
Now, I'm the only person that see me. Well, maybe not the only person, but I've always been okay with that, and it could be because of my family. When my aunt, shout out to my aunt Vicky, I love her so much. She literally breastfed every baby in our family because she overproduced milk. So she produced milk for years and years and years past baby age, and she literally breastfed every single child in our family almost.
Wow.
So like, it's never been if somebody needed me to breastfeed their baby, sure. Like they have it in the hospital. I know they have the milk banks, but they also have it where women who are producing milk can come and nurse those babies. They get screened and they can nurse the babies in the NICU if their mom is unable to. So I've always been for that. Like, just like Shug said, it's history. It's always been a thing. And breastfeeding in a lot of cultures is communal. like mothers get together and do it and breastfeed each other's baby if a mother is sick. But just to speak to other reasons why people can't, there's all sorts of things. Like if you're a woman physically, if you have inverted nipples, you might really struggle. If you've had breast implants or a breast reduction, you may not be able to produce milk anymore. Then there's several medical like diseases and issues. Like if you have HIV, sometimes I don't think you can.
No.
I have a medical. You can't. I have a medical review in front of me, and it says HIV. You can't. If your baby has galactosemia, which is a genetic condition, they cannot breastfeed because they can't process certain things in the breast milk. If you have active tuberculosis, if you have human T cell lymphotrophic virus, or
Ash, this is super medical though.
yeah, but it's the reasons people wouldn't be able to breastfeed. But one that's actually simple. If you're on an antidepressant, if you are on an antidepressant, certain antidepressants you cannot breastfeed on. And speaking of antidepressants, what if you are a mama who's depressed or who has postpartum depression? Those mental health things that affect nursing mothers.
Well, on top of the medical stuff, I'm gonna kind of roll back to something Auntie Keish was saying as far as like the mothers who could breastfeed, who are producing but choose not to. And you know, it doesn't make you any less of a mother. There are several reasons, whether it be personal reasons, cultural, social, economic reasons why you don't want to breastfeed. But I will say, you know, the lack of support from people in your community. Like you have a lot of single mothers who don't have a partner and they don't have family support. And breastfeeding is like, you know, you have to get up in the middle of the night. And if you have other kids, you're going to be tired. You know, like if you don't have someone that's there to support you and be helpful with that, you may choose not to do that and just kind of take another route for things. And then culturally, there are different cultures that have different views on it. You know, America, we're more individualistic. So even if our family don't approve of it, we still gonna do it sometimes. Some other cultures, if it's not approved by the family, it's just a no-go. Like the person may be capable, but they're not gonna do it. So there are several factors other than just medical reasons that influence that decision as well.
And fun fact, I took a sociology class in college, and over time, throughout history, the idea of breastfeeding when formula did come into play, it was seen as you were better off economically if you could afford formula. So women chose purposely not to breastfeed because I'm rich, I can afford formula. So It was like a poor people thing to breastfeed. And so that shunned a lot of people. Like, I don't want to be seen as poor, so let me get formula.
And that's still a thing currently in some cultures. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you're
poor, you really should be breastfeeding if you're poor because it's free.
I'm okay.
Exactly.
I'm okay with being seen as poor. I wasn't buying formula if I didn't have to.
Because formula is like $15 a can right now. That's depressing. And I'm for real when I say that's depressing.
Listen, the special formula that I had to get Zeph, because once I did start giving her formula after about 9 to 10 months, I had to start supplementing. And that formula she needed was $37 a can in 2008.
Yeah, it's
really get a small can. I was like, okay, I'm poor. We're poor.
I mean, in some cases, I guess it's like high priced formula is going to probably make more people breastfeed. But I feel like for the people that cannot produce milk, like they should get a discount. Like there should be some kind of card, like a daggum EBT card, special for breastfeeding mother or mothers who have issues that prevent that, so they can get their stuff for much cheaper. Like that's crazy.
But that's crazy. Even now, there's a shortage. There's a formula shortage, and this is like the third time that's happened since COVID, I think, where a lot of formula you cannot find in the stores. So it's just like, for those who choose not to breastfeed, it's like, if you breastfeed, you got food at all times. But if you absolutely can't breastfeed, like reserve that for the women who absolutely can't, or the babies who can't.
Yeah.
Well, I had a nephew who actually it was the formula feeding that made his eczema worse. It almost actually killed him because of what was in the formula, and then they didn't know that he was allergic to what was in the formula, and he ended up in a NICU for like a week just based off of not having breast milk. And so, um, and I don't demonize people who use formula because they use it. But I think breast is best, but I also think fed is best.
Sometimes this country has not made it's not what is it, child focused sometimes, which is why we have some of these barriers and issues that we have, not so much on an individual level but a systemic level. But I think that it's important for y'all to get this information, so that way you know what type of resources and things that are available to you. So please follow to our foil to give y'all our final thoughts.
We got just what you need at the cookout.
Well, all right. So I think my final thoughts on breastfeeding would be for people to educate themselves and advocate. Advocate for mamas, whether they breastfeed or not. Advocate for mamas, but especially mamas who do breastfeed. And if you see them breastfeeding out in public and somebody says something, say something. If you hear somebody say something to them, say something to them, because mothers already have a lot on their plate. They already have a lot going on. There's a lot of mental things, physical things, psychological things. So take that one stressor off her by being a support in that moment.
Yeah. I think I would say educate yourself, or like not even educate yourself, but rethink it, like think it over. Do some CBT, some cognitive behavioral therapy. Think about when you think, oh, she shouldn't be breastfeeding in public. Think, well, what else could it be? Because another thing it could be is the baby's hungry and she's just trying to calm the baby down right now before she goes on a long drive, or the baby's hungry and mama's breasts are so full that she can't go on a long drive, or she can't do anything until she actually relieves herself, because that's a thing too. Or just mind your business.
Okay. But this is real. Yes. I'm going to second the education piece, because, like I shared in the hot sauce, when I had my first child, they tried to tell me like I didn't need to breastfeed, or like they tried to tell me something that I knew wasn't right because I did my research beforehand. So if you know about it, if you know more, if you educate yourself, then you are more equipped to be successful at breastfeeding your child. And even if you aren't successful, ain't nothing wrong with that either. Just make sure your kids are healthy and they're getting fed.
I would encourage people to know that if you have the thought of, or even being nervous about breastfeeding, I can guarantee you one other woman who feels the same way. So just know that you are not alone in feeling like this, and that there is a community of women who are willing to provide resources, or even know a resource for you. So that way you don't have to walk this journey alone with you and your child. And that is my foil to you.
At the cookout, we got just what you need.